Hi, and welcome back to The Growth Show. I'm Whitney, and today I have another special guest episode with one of our former students, another former student of ours from the Wellness Pro website system, Courtney O'Neill. So, Courtney and I dig into so many amazing things in this episode today. We talk about how to create your business and your website around multiple niches and how she came to decide on what she wanted to focus on in her business and how that's evolved for her. We also talk about this is a common theme now of how she is running her business and getting clients without using social media. So we talk through that a little bit. And we also talk a lot about that comparisonitis that we can sometimes have as business owners. And as we are creating our website and making a lot of decisions about how we are going to show up and the services we're going to have and how we're going to present ourselves, and just how we can kind of get out of that mindset and really focus on what is true to us. And she has some really great advice in here that I think you're really going to love. Now, before we get into this episode, if you are looking for help with getting the clarity and confidence to launch your business online, then you should come to my upcoming free class, the Client Generating Website Formula for Nutrition and Wellness Entrepreneurs. So I'm going to be sharing my ultimate framework for creating a website that generates traffic and brings you new leads and clients every day. And it is happening next week. This class is happening next week, Tuesday and Wednesday. Register for free at whitneybateson.com/formula. We also have the link in the show notes. Plus, when you join the class, you'll get my ultimate website roadmap resource, which is a step-by-step guide to launching a website that actually grows your business rather than one that just sits there and does nothing. So that's yours free when you join me in class. Just go to whitneybateson.com/formula to grab your seat and make sure you do it fast because class is next week. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Courtney before we get into the episode. So, Courtney is a registered dietitian based in Canada. Centering people at the heart of all the work she does is the not so secret ingredient to Courtney's approach to nutrition, dietetics, and community food access. Courtney has worked in small Ontario communities for almost 10 years with a deep focus on chronic disease management, specifically diabetes and gestational diabetes, prenatal and postpartum nutrition, and community food access and food security. Courtney provides virtual nutrition counseling, both individual, couple, and group, with a focus on diabetes and prenatal nutrition. Her practice focuses on long-term support to enable behavior change and helps clients navigate everyday hurdles and release the chokehold of diet culture. Nutrition education is never a one-size-fits-all approach, and often small changes have larger impacts than we realize. At a community and organizational level, Courtney has provided key leadership to and project coordination for local food policy councils and food access strategies in Ontario. And you'll hear her talk a little bit about this side of her business and how that is growing as well today. So that's pretty cool. Her expertise in food systems, understanding the complexity of poverty in rural communities, and her ability to convene conversation on difficult subject matter enables her to be a sought-after community leader. So super cool. She wears many hats and does a lot of different things, and it's going to be a great conversation with her today because you will hear how she puts all of that together in her business. So as a trained registered dietitian, Courtney's counseling and consulting are really rooted in human-centered design, empathy, and collaboration, and you'll get a taste of that today. So let's get into the episode. All right, welcome, Courtney, to the show. I am so excited to talk with you today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be chatting with you, Whitney.
Yeah. So you are a registered dietitian working in diabetes and prenatal nutrition. What called you to this work?
I don't know if I was called directly to the work initially. I started out in a rural community setting, and there was a lot of chronic disease, clients needing chronic disease support. And so I fell into the role a little bit and loved being able to have long-term connections with clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a one-off. You're really part of their journey for years, which is such a privilege.
Yeah.
And then you get to know their families, and that's something I really value. I would say that's one of my core values is that relationships. And so I think that's something that I love about diabetes care, and that's the same with prenatal, right? You get to be a part of their journey maybe from the beginning or even before conception, and then afterwards and getting to meet their children, watching their families grow. It is such a privilege. So I love that long-term support that I can provide. And offer to clients.
Yeah, that's great. I definitely, from coming from that clinical side, I would always hear people saying, they generally enjoy like the outpatient, but that's usually the spot where there's not enough like work or jobs, that more like relationship focused education where we're actually using our expertise and just feeling like we're actually making a difference in people's lives versus the acute setting.
Yeah, no, I would say that's another part of it too, right? Is that you can work with them to set goals that are realistic, and watching them develop those skills to make those changes is, it's so amazing to see them become empowered and build that confidence. And, selfishly, it's a little rewarding to know that, like, hey, I actually am having an impact, right? My work is important, which in the dietetic sphere can sometimes feel it's hard to measure that. And so
Hmm.
it's nice to you can kind of get those quick wins sometimes, or easy wins if when you're working with the clients, which is really special.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so you mentioned that this wasn't always like, you didn't know that this was what you wanted to work in and all of that. And so talk me through how things were when you were starting your business. So you were working in those settings, but then thinking about starting your business. And I don't know at what phase we started working together, because I should say that, we work together in our website program, helping you build your amazing website. And we'll dig into kind of how your website has supported your evolution in your business as well. But walk me through like how you decided, like, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on, and those initial kind of early thinking stages.
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit of a matter of circumstance. So my family had moved, and my husband purchased a business, so moved locations, was kind of removed from I had to leave my old job, and
Hmm.
I wanted to be able to carry on those skills and not leave, or still be able to work with that population. And then
Yeah.
in the same breath, I think when we began working together, I just had my second kid, my
Yep.
son, and so I also was in like the depths of like postpartum, being a
Mm,
mom. So I think it was a number of factors that I've really felt called to continue on this work versus seeking out something new.
yeah.
And I think a third piece was like having a partner who is an entrepreneur. I really got exposed to entrepreneurship and what's out there, why there's a lot of reward in taking those risks. So a number of different factors played into it, but knowing deep down that I wanted to continue to work with those populations is kind of what drove me to say, hey, maybe I can do this on my own, or I can do it a little bit differently than what I was
Hmm.
doing before.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, getting that confidence to kind of put yourself out there is one part of it, but when your circumstances are also kind of saying, "Okay, like this is an opportunity," that can that can be a good impetus as well. But then finding that niche and that clarity of, "Okay, this is who I'm going to serve and the services that I'm going to offer." So, would you say, so we worked together on your website, think like 2 years ago at this point, or just about. So, how has your business, how have your services, and even how has your website evolved from during that time?
Yeah, so initially I was, as we said, very focused on that prenatal, postpartum space, and then having the diabetes certification, started jumping into more gestational diabetes as well, which really became obvious that there was a gap there, and providing a little bit more of that coaching support for clients. And then something that maybe some listeners will resonate with was that I still had another job in a different sphere of dietetics, which was in like food security, food access, and so I almost felt like I had two different identities. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, okay, do I need another website for this
Uh-huh.
other space? Like it just felt like I didn't know how to merge the two. So
Mhm.
up until recently, I was really just focused the website on the prenatal space, the gestational diabetes, and it's been going so well. But also my opportunities are growing in the food security space, working like doing a little bit more consulting, working with some local organizations, doing some like regional strategy work, which is incredible. So now I'm in this phase of kind of merging the two, so my website can be a one-stop shop for what I can bring to individuals and the community. But it hasn't been a graceful merger, so we're still working on that.
Yeah, well, you and I were talking a little bit before we hit record, and just this process, and this idea of when you put up a website, a lot of us feel like it is the final, like, view of your business, and it has to be the way things are going to be forever, and also that it has to be perfect. And I think there's also this idea of like, well, I have to have all of my services on my website if I am offering them, or I'm not offering that service anymore. I immediately need to take it down off of my website. And I just got to say, like, as a web designer myself and someone who promotes websites, permission for things to be in flux, because like, I make decisions in my business, but there are always decisions I am making and always changes and tweaks that I'm making. And I think the power of a program like ours, and you can, attest to this as well, potentially, is that you learn how to make those changes on your website. So it's not like you went and paid a designer and they were like, okay, tell me what your services are. And now you don't know how to change your site to reflect those services. So you do know how to make those changes, but also that maybe it's going to be a little bit of a transition period where, there's some things on the site that maybe are not as accurate yet. And there are other things that you're going to be adding, but knowing that it's a process, right?
It's totally a process, and that is something that I'm slowly accepting, right? I've heard it and I know it, but really accepting that as like letting go of that control piece, I guess a little bit is at the core of what needs to happen. And I would say going through, working with you and your team, I would say it's almost threefold. Like one, you're getting that background understanding and someone really supporting you in that initial development, which is key. And for context, I am not tech savvy at all. So doing this, well, I think I had like a 1 page or a 2 page like Wix website, which is great, but I knew I wanted something more. So working with you and your team was so helpful to understand just like WordPress in general. But secondly, I have saved the templates of like what we write and how many characters for each section of each page on the website. And I
Yeah.
still use that because, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. And oftentimes it doesn't need to be this really incredible thing. It's keeping it simple. It's having a template to keep you on track. So that is like still saved in my website folder on Google
Older, I love
Drive,
it.
which I referenced. But the third piece is like sometimes it's okay saying, hey, I still don't know how to do this thing on WordPress. So like reaching out to your team and working with you has also been helpful. So it's kind of like knowing it's like an extension of services in a way to
Mhm.
help you kind of bring this vision to life, or at least it has been for me, which I'm so grateful for because I know for sure I would not have a WordPress website if not.
Well, it's also hard to do these things for ourselves, even someone who sits down with some of those other platforms, like, you still have to have this strategy of, okay, what are the services? How is it going to flow and make sense? How am I organizing things? Who is my ideal customer? How am I speaking to them? How much should I be saying in different parts? So there's like a lot that goes into it, and it's just helpful to have someone else guiding you through that process. And then, to your point, it's the gift that keeps on giving, because now you've learned, or you have these templates of, okay, this is how, if I were to create a new services page about my consulting, I have a template that is guiding me through how I should write the copy for that page, and how I might want to what strategy I want to have for my homepage to kind of make that clear and make it clear for people coming to my site, so that you're not having to go back to the drawing board or being like, I have a service, but I have absolutely no idea how to put it on my website. It's like
Totally.
you learned the strategy, or there's videos that you can go back to rewatch to understand the strategy of introducing something new on your site, and all of that. I love that.
And I definitely still go back to the videos as well. So, yeah, no, I
Good.
absolutely agree. And I think the other thing too, if anyone's diving into this or any piece of work, is the saying that perfection is the enemy of action. And I feel like that to me is like depicts a lot of the last few years
Mhm.
for me. But having a template like that at least challenges that a little bit to say, like, okay, this is a criteria that you can work in, and helps kind of focus the mind and those thoughts a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that idea too, when we're working on things for our business, we might be going and looking at other people's websites for inspiration, or maybe looking at their social media profiles to kind of see how they're doing things. And it can really feel, we start getting that comparisonitis. We're going for inspiration, but then we end up having that feeling of like, oh my gosh, everyone else has everything so perfect. And what the heck am I doing? Like, how have you overcome those feelings, or, have you encountered those in the course of your business too?
Oh my gosh, that is a really great question. The first thing that I'll just say is that if anyone is like in this space, if you're creating anything, create it and then look at examples, because I have not done that. And we all bring something unique to the table, and or like we have this fire inside of us, and that can be totally killed when you go on social
Yeah.
media or you're looking for, quote unquote inspiration, because we're just like not confident in what we're bringing to the table yet. And so when we go do this, let's look for examples, it's actually not helping us, right? Because at the end of the day, it means we're just not certain with who we are or what we're doing. So that's definitely something I have fallen victim to. And so what some of the ways that, more recently that I have been able to kind of take control of that is just not being on social media. And for some people, I think it's an incredible tool. And that's amazing, right? Some people, they're just so creative. I'm like, I love it. And in the other sense, like, I do like doing reels. And this is just an example, but I'm like, if it's taking me more than an hour or two to do a reel, this is not a good use of my time. Like, cost effective, that is not. So really needing to take a step back from social media, really looking at those, really getting clear of what is driving income in my business,
Hmm.
and letting go of that, oh, I should be on social media, the shoulds. Um,
Yep.
and, knowing that it's okay and it's still going to be there for you. And at the end of the day, no one really cares. Eh, right? It's only, the narrative that we're telling ourselves.
Hmm.
And, this is kind of a sidebar, but one of the things I've noticed is that since taking a step back from social media and paying a small fee to advertise my services on a website, I have the most traffic, or I have had the most clients in the last 2 months.
Oh my
And
gosh.
is that a correlation? I have no idea, but to me, it's telling me that what I'm doing right now is working,
That's
and
amazing.
social media will be there for me when I maybe have a creative outlet, but it's also just not the business model I'm after. And so I think
Right.
there's a number of different factors, but yeah, getting rid of social media has been wonderful for
It's really
business
helped you
side of
out.
thing, personal,
Yeah.
time. It's,
Yeah.
it can be an energy mind suck, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I've taken a little bit of a step back. Like, I still have stuff on my social, but I went to, like, if I'm doing launches and promoting things, and we'll put some posts out, but then in between that, we are just gonna have a 9 grid now, and
Yes.
just static, and then I'll still post to my stories. I love telling people, like, right now I'm on, like, a bird kick because there's a baby bird family outside my
I
office,
love
and
it.
so, like,
Amazing.
in Bali, it was all about the geckos. I'm sad that I don't have, like, giant geckos to report to people, but baby birds is my content now, so I still, like, do it when it lights me up, and I enjoy kind of connecting with people and all of that, but, yeah, I also just looked at kind of the numbers, and because the reason that I got off of social is because I had someone doing my posts for me, and she was doing a wonderful job, but she decided to switch her services up and move away from doing Instagram management. And this is what happens sometimes in my business, is I have this crossroads of the person who is doing the thing is no longer available, and so do I replace them or do I change?
Right.
And sometimes I replace them, but also there have been pivotal moments where I've just decided, like, I've stepped back and said, am I doing this because this is a should, or am I doing this because this is actually a strategic decision in my business? And I want to hear a little bit more about, like, what you are doing with advertising, because I think that can be a scary thing for a lot of business owners, because there's so much messaging out there of like, get followers or get business without
Yeah.
ads, without paying. And it's like, I was paying a fair bit of amount of money every month for someone to post on social media for me, for quote unquote organic traffic and followers and all of that. But I was still paying, and I was reviewing her work and making sure things were, going okay. So there is still a time and money investment And similar to what you were saying, if you're spending an hour plus on a reel, how much would you be charging for that amount of time?
Yep.
That is still money you are paying, whether you want to think it or not.
Totally.
And organic traffic is wonderful. And we do want to have that coming into our business. And there's things like optimizing our blog posts and our website for SEO and having that come in. But there is a time and place for some paid traffic as well when it's done correctly. And we don't want people to be going and throwing a lot of money at Facebook ads without knowing the strategy there and paying for the right things and knowing when to turn off the ads and turn on the ads if the costs are getting too high. And, do we have our website set up correctly so that when we are paying for that traffic to come to our site,
Yep.
that it is actually going to find what it needs and that customers and we're targeting the right people. So it's not to say that there's not still like you should still tread lightly and make the right decisions when you go into it. And I think those ad costs can potentially probably go up quickly for people if they don't know what they're doing and they don't have that strategy. That's a great way to, hire someone and put that money that you were paying a social media person or the money that you could be making with clients by actually seeing them instead of posting on social and go and divert that to maybe something like ads. So going back to the web, so you found a website that was a good fit that you feel is connected with your audience specifically, and it's bringing you customers. Can you just kind of like expand a little bit on that?
Yeah. So one of them is Health Profs, which is a
Okay.
fairly popular website. And it's funny because I did it and I wasn't getting clients. So I went to cancel and I was like, are you sure you want to cancel? You'll have trouble ranking again. So then I was like, oh my God. So I was like, you know what? I'll do one more month. And I don't know, ever since then, I can like at least no, I would say like a few times a week, I'm getting new submissions or like inquiries. And then there's another
Wonderful.
local directory for dietitians within Canada. Maybe it's in the US too, but specifically in Canada or within Ontario where I'm located. So I did that as well, updating on our national group for like Find a Dietitian. So just really
Hmm.
kind of those lower cost
Yep.
options, certainly not veering into ads or anything like that right now has been kind of a core strategy. And then the other piece, which is like the opposite of social media, is I really reflected and I recognized that I love connecting in person. I
Mm,
just love being with people. And so in my consulting role and kind of project coordination role, I'm working with community partners all the time. Lots of different organizations, so I can talk about my individual services, but people then hear what I'm doing in terms of project coordination. Oh, hey, do you want to take on this project? Do you know anything about policy development? So I think
mhm,
we need to not lose sight of like the active networking and
mhm.
getting involved in your community. That's a core value for me. So
Yep.
volunteering in the community, getting to know people, and it is going to have a slower return on investment, but
Mhm.
it's lifelong, and it's also oftentimes fulfilling for you if you are an extroverted person like myself. And I just,
Mhm.
yeah, being connected to my communities and like is something that is really meaningful to me. And so I think different strategies work for different businesses and what services you're offering.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's such a great point. And so throughout getting the listings in the directories and the networking in the community, your website is that spot where you can send people so they can know about you and connect with you and just feel like, okay, at least, yeah, you don't need to be on social media. That's not really the place for people to like really connect with you and learn about what you do and your business and your values and all of that. Cause
Yep.
social media is just kind of like there's a lot of stuff on there. So your website can be that spot for people.
Yeah. And it really
Yeah.
helps me. Like currently, right now, it's not live, but I've been working through updating my pages kind of in that draft section, right? To really
Mhm.
make sure it's clear to everyone, for each of the services I do offer. So whether it's counseling or whether it's consulting or project coordination, and optimizing those as well. So that's something that I've been working on the back end. And that really helps me get clear about who I am, what am I doing, and how do all of these different kind of spaces of dietetics I work in, whether it's diabetes, prenatal, food security. At the
Mhm.
end of the day, overarching is that I love supporting people in their journey and moving to the next step and doing
That's
that in a
great.
way that people can find joy, some ease, really helping them see those possibilities. And so it's helped me kind of find that thread and
Mm-hmm.
weave that all together. And that's why a website is so beautiful, because it can do that. Whereas social media, at least I have not found a way to do that nicely.
Yeah. Right. It kind of just brings all of it together. It is this spot, this hub for your business that is just organizing all of these different ideas and things. Because I have to say, I think most dietitians and health professionals out there, they wear many hats. Like when I was employed, I wore many hats. I was interested in a lot of different things. I think
Yep.
you were probably the same way. And there can be this challenge for folks. And I really love actually you're here and doing these things, diabetes and prenatal and food security and all of this. These are what to some people could feel like very different. And you found a way to put them together and also not say, oh, I have to be niche down into this one thing. And because there is that idea of, oh, you need to pick one thing and you have to go with that one thing. But I think really what the message is when it comes to niching is that you just need to know who you're helping and how you're helping them. And there can be space for a few different things as long as you have that overarching message of what is it that you're really trying to do and how are you helping people. And it's okay to have a few different niches and things that you're doing and weaving it all together. And there's space for it to have it on one website but it can evolve too.
It can evolve. And I think the word niche is something that I definitely like fell for hard. Like I was like, okay, I have to niche down. I have to pick something. And like again, my husband who's the entrepreneur was like, "Oh my God, no, just like go start something."
Yes.
And I was like, "No,
Right,
no,
that's
it
true.
needs to be perfect." Right? And I can only have prenatal and postpartum on my website. And then I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, okay, but wait, where does this go? And where does this go?" So if
Yeah.
anyone's feeling like maybe who's listening that they do feel like they have multiple niches or it's broad, just trying to think a little bit more about what's the theme or what drives the work that you're doing, if that's anything I can offer, because I definitely got caught up in needing to like box myself in different places with each niche. And now I'm kind of like a few years in and I'm like, they can all sit in one place, right? There's just like getting to the core of why you do what you do, right? Like
Mhm.
what is the impact I'm having and how do I communicate that? And it can be to different clients, right? Just like
Right.
businesses offer many different services to different people or develop products for different age groups or whatever. We're allowed to do the same thing, but sometimes that marketing around you need to create your business and it needs to look like this in private practice. And I mean, it's incredible that we have those services. And at the same time, I think if you're feeling a little vulnerable or you don't have like a good background, you can kind of fall into this, I guess, perfectionist space
Mhm.
again, right? Versus being like in that innovation kind of side of things.
Right, right, and finding your own way
Mhm.
to make it all work for yourself because, yeah, all of our businesses are so unique and different, and that it can be tough because there's advice out there and, it's not like it's ill-intended, it's just it has to be simplistic. So, like, niche down, that's the like, to say niche down except in this case or, like, but, that's a little bit of a harder message for people to put into a soundbite, but it's absolutely true that it's niching, but with some caveats, and I like your point too about you can appeal to different clients. And I think part of the benefit of niching or just getting clear on your messaging is so that you can actually reach people and have dialed in messaging so that you can connect with that specific person who is a right fit for that specific service.
Yep.
And so on your website, your homepage may have a listing of those different services and an overarching view of generally what you do and your values and what drives your business and what ties it all together. But then you can have separate sections of your services page or separate pages on your website for every single one of those services and clients and have different messaging and different ways that you market to those people as well. Like
Yep.
I still do some consulting in my business. I don't have it on my website because I'm not actively looking to get clients for it. If I was, then I would have a page on my website about it, and I would do some of the things you're talking about. I would do more networking, maybe some LinkedIn outreach,
Yeah.
talking to people in my network because that's more of like trying to get long-term consulting contracts, and all of that. Whereas marketing my website business, I'm going to have a different part of my website talking to those specific people, and I'm going to market it in a different way. So I think some of the things when you're getting started, though, can be this feeling of overwhelm of if you do try and launch too many things and try and reach too many different people and have too many different marketing channels going all at once,
Yep.
that can be tough. But you and I are both a couple years into our businesses now, and we're learning, okay, here's what I want to do for this service and this channel of people. And you kind of have to grow and stack those things as time goes on. You can't do it all out of the gate.
No, no. And, it's also something I've reflected on too is like do something and evaluate it, right? Did it actually do what you thought? Did it make you the money? Did you get, whether it's social media and the followers? And, I think oftentimes it is like, is it generating the income that you hope? And I think building that in, right? And sometimes some of the metrics we use are those like followers, but do those followers lead to income? Probably not, or not a lot.
Yeah.
So just ensuring that we're using those evaluation skills that we have and that we have developed as dietitians, but many health professionals, and making sure that we're doing it objectively as well, right? And using that data to drive our decisions forward. And I'm like saying that, and that sounds like I've been doing that for years, but I haven't. So
I'm like thinking to myself too, I'm like, yep, I definitely created a spreadsheet where we were going to start tracking all of our efforts. And have we
totally.
been looking at it? No.
No.
But we do, like when we do launches for our program, we do have a debrief document that we do habitually fill out after every debrief. I have members of my team help me to fill it
Okay.
out, and we put all of our numbers in there because I totally agree. Like it is a very subjective thing, our sales and how our business is doing. And did we feel that we were successful this month? Did we feel that that blog that I spent forever working on actually made a difference? Or how many discovery calls actually came in this month, and how
That's right.
many, what was my income, and how many sales of this thing, and all of that? How many email subscribers did I get this month, and clicks to whatever, whatever metrics you want to measure. I would say don't go overboard and measure a ton of things because you'll never track it.
Yep.
But it really is such a good gut check so that you can make those informed decisions. And yeah, maybe just like pick one thing that you're going to focus on and evaluate. And I am proud that we measure our launches, but some of the other stuff I invest in, I'm not sure I measure as as much, but
Yeah, no,
it's just
I feel
something.
that. But it is helpful because it helps you have that conversation with yourself too. And so actually just this morning I did my like kind of summarized July, looked at some numbers, looked at income, and it was looking at the little bit of money I'm spending in those advertising or not advertising on those websites to promote my service and the income it's generating. I'm like, that's an easy yes to continue. And so
That's
it's
amazing.
just, yeah, it's just like seeing that right on that a spreadsheet. I mean, I have so many, but this one is nice. It's working. And, it may not be what we want it to be initially, but, measuring, celebrating those small wins as
Hmm.
well is really helpful, and whatever that may be.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And using the data and being patient too, because some of these investments do take some time. And like you mentioned, even with like the networking, those are some longer term things, but we want to be doing a couple different things in our business to be attracting people in on a consistent basis, and leveraging our email list, and doing all these other things to overall be making a difference. We're not going to be able to just look at one activity and say, oh, that was the thing necessarily. It's kind of even in our launches, it's like, I don't know exactly what I did to like get that result, but we did these 5 things and
Yeah.
the result was better than last time. So maybe we'll keep doing those 5 things for the next time. So, but speaking of doing all the things, I wanted to bring up and ask how you balance being an entrepreneur and running your business and keeping a finger on the pulse of all of these different things going on, and then also having a family, having 3 littles at home. Like, how has that been? Any advice for folks
Any
listening?
advice? It's a little messy. No. You know what? I think what we were saying earlier around the word balance, because that's often like thrown around a lot. And I think balance is fluid, right? It moves back and forth. So Some days could be more professionally heavy, some days can be more parent heavy, motherhood heavy. And also depends on like the context of like your living situation. Do you have that village around you? All those other pieces. So I think what I'm starting to learn and starting to practice is like having grace with myself, because I definitely, even up until my third, she's now a year old, I was like, I can do all the things, and they started to not happen, right? And then you kind of you start to kind of break down a little bit, and you're like, oh, I'm not good enough, that negative self-talk,
Yeah.
versus recognizing what's important to you, what do you value, what time do you realistically have available, and what can you do with that time? So it's been a lot of, professionally, I've had to do a lot of checking in with myself to say, like, what is my capacity? So if you only have 40% and you're giving 100%, or like that's what you're giving 100%
Yeah.
of yourself. So I think it just like reevaluating what you can offer of yourself while still being the parent you want to be, knowing that even if you have to scale back right now, which I have had to a little bit in some ways, that doesn't mean you're going to scale back forever as well,
Ugh.
which is like very hard to practice, but it has served me well the last few months also. And I also feel like when you do that, magically things start to happen. Maybe you become more creative. You've created
Yeah.
some space for something else. So I don't think there's like a magic strategy. I would say if there's like a parent watching or like listening, sorry, or, maybe people are worried about becoming a, like, what is it going to look like when I have kids?
Yeah.
I don't think there's like one great strategy out there. I think it's like a lot
Mhm.
of trial and error, which I think is just like entrepreneurship, right? And
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of flops. And what's
Mhm.
interesting for me is that being a parent, I feel very confident in who I am as a mom, right? Like I'm never like doubting myself, or rarely do I doubt myself. I feel like, yeah, I feel like I'm a great mom. I love, like, it just feels very certain as who I am, versus professionally, I've kind of struggled to feel that like same certainty in who I
Mm.
am. So it's quite kind of like a conflict of identities, right? Like I can feel so
Yeah.
certain in one way, and other times just like really doubting myself as a professional.
Mm.
So I would say even more so, that's been a little bit more of that energy suck, is that,
Uh-huh.
I'm second guessing myself. I'm taking a lot longer on projects than like I should be. So now I'm not using my time as efficiently. So
Yeah.
yeah, all that to say, I think it ebbs and flows. And for me, at the end of the day, being a great parent is like what is most important. And I think it's okay to like say, hey, maybe this isn't working for me right now. Maybe I need to pause. Maybe I need to
Mhm.
find another type of job, or maybe you just need to pivot a little bit. So I think just allowing yourself those opportunities to reflect, evaluate, like we were talking about before, is really important. And I would say in a lot of ways, it can make you a better business person and
Mhm.
entrepreneur, because your time management skills become impeccable. The amount of things I can do by the time, from when I wake up in the morning to work out till my kids get out the door, I'm like, I have lived 3 lives and it is only 9 o'clock, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, also, I felt for parents during the pandemic when, you had kids at home. I was like, I do not know how you are able to get things done when you are just having to make sure that, they're not knocking things over and entertained and all of that stuff. The level of productivity, I think probably for parents who are entrepreneurs is like next level because you have to manage the time.
But you have. And the other thing I'll say is that, kind of going back to that theme of like comparison, there are just some like really incredibly successful parents, right? Who are also on like social media, and they just like, they got it. They can do it, right? Maybe they have a team behind them. Maybe they have a lot of extra support, or maybe they're just really good with social media, right? And they can
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
what they're showing, and their
Yeah.
business is thriving with young kids. And it's so easy to say, well, like, I should be doing that. And like, I have also said that. And at the end of the day, who cares, right? Like,
Yeah.
we need to be happy with like who we are, our family, the work that we're doing. And like someone kind of I read somewhere or heard somewhere once that, if you like what they're doing, or like you're like, oh, I wish I was like them, whoever that is, you need to that means you want all of what they're doing. You want their whole life, right? You want their living situation, maybe, right? So it's
Hmm.
not just that little piece that we see on social media. And
Yeah.
I think always reminding myself of that. And it comes back to just being certain with who you are, what you can
Hmm.
offer. And at the end of the day, you're not going to be resentful, or you'll be less resentful if you're like more in line with like who you want to be and what you can offer.
Hmm. Yeah, it can be really tough as a business owner because we are out there, we are both looking for customers and then also keeping a pulse on what's going on, but it's hard to then not compare ourselves to others. And as a business owner, we have so much that we're focusing on, and then you also as a parent are making sure that you're making the right decisions and doing right by your kids and your family. And eventually it's going to take a toll on our energy. All these decisions, all these just double checking that, am I making the right decision? Am I making the right call? Am I doing the right thing? I see these other people doing these other things. And I think this is something that I talk about often, that like going forward with your business, going forward with your website, it is a mindset that you need to have. There's a level of confidence, and it's not that you have to be confident when you go into it. Just recognize and realize that when you start the project, it's going to shake your confidence. It's going to make you question certain things. And so give yourself that grace. And I'm working a lot on just trying to not work so many hours because I find I am exhausted at the end of the day. And I therefore don't have the mental and emotional energy to be creative or think of new possibilities and live as fulfilling a extracurricular life as I would like. And I'm trying to work on that. But yeah, that misnomer of balance is never gonna be 50-50. That one thing is always going to get more, but also knowing that it's not going to be forever, and especially if you're working on a project or in your business, saying, "Okay, this is something I'm going to devote some time to, I'm going to work on, but I'm going to be honest that some other things are going to have to give in
Yes.
order for me to do this thing, and it's for this period of time." So, like, when working on your website, it's like, "Okay, it's gonna take some time, it's gonna take my time away from some other things, but I'm going to give it a container and work on it," but also recognizing that, there's gonna be some wobbles, there's gonna be some emotional stuff coming up, but that's okay.
Yep.
But you gotta clear some space for it because we can't be giving 100 and then say, "Oh, I have this other thing I wanna give that I need to give 20%. So now I'm gonna do 120% for 4 weeks or more." It's like, no.
No. And yeah, I really resonated with what you said at the beginning around being like exhausted and, just not having capacity for other things. And so we recently lost my aunt to cancer,
I'm
and it was like,
sorry.
it was quick. Thank you. And she was just like this person who like had so much spirit. Like she's saying
Mm,
jazz. She traveled the world at like her 60s, like backpacked by herself. She was just like this incredible person. And I just feel like I'm like, "Oh god, life is so short that like why am I working extra hours to make social media posts or doing this thing, right?
yeah.
When, you know, what really is going to drive our business forward? What is a realistic amount of time we can create and what actually fills up our cup outside of work? I think it's so whether it is like your family, I think it's really important for parents, mothers to have a hobby outside of their kids, building those friendships, whether professional or personal. So I think it's just like
Yeah.
taking a step back and really analyzing like what you want your life to look like. And,
Mhm.
we definitely need to work in our business, but there's so many other aspects of life that we all deserve to be engaged with in some way. So I think it's like a good
Yeah.
reminder that I don't think every day we should be leaving so exhausted that like there's not
Right.
much more of us to give or to like enjoy other things.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And so it's finding either more people to help you or doing business differently, deciding to drop something like social media if it's draining you and taking your time and relying on other things. Maybe taking some of those profits and putting them back into the business so that you can take back some of your time or your energy and just taking those steps back before you just completely like get burnt out, 0 gas in the tank, running on fumes, can't even get to the gas
Mhm.
station to fill up. Like that is not where we want to be.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I feel like we just covered so many different things, both business and just mindset and just living, like you said, living a life where in a business that's filling up your cup because life is too short. Um, is there anything else? So we'll link to your website in the show notes and where
Sure.
people can find you, even though, yeah, we caveat you're not on social a whole lot, but if people want to get in touch with you, they can connect with you that way. But is there anything else that we should share with folks? Any final parting advice you want to share with folks before we wrap up?
I think the big thing is just making sure, like from a business standpoint, that you're still finding joy in what you're doing. And if you're not, I think it's a great opportunity to check in with yourself, because the kind of shoulds again that we've talked about, we should be doing this, oftentimes kind of chips away at that joy. And if I just took a little extended vacation, which was really lovely, and I feel like I'm coming back. I had joy leaving, but I feel like that cup of joy is refilled.
Mm.
And I think just, being in a place in the last few years where I felt like I had to do this and I had to do this, and you can really lose, like you just, that joy doesn't kind of come as natural. So that would be a one thing I definitely want to share with people if they're in like the thick of this, or they're feeling like they don't have that spark. It Pausing is going to be so much more powerful than working an extra few hours. And I mean,
So true.
it's harder, just harder said, harder to
Yeah.
do than said.
Yeah.
But like when you look at like the really incredible entrepreneurs out there, you're like, oh yeah, they they're not even working as much as me right now, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great advice.
I
Yeah.
think we should all still be feeling a little spark when we come to work, or especially if we're choosing to start our own business, right? Or else we might as well just go back to what we were doing before.
Yep. So true. Well, thank you so much for such a inspiring conversation, Courtney, and for sharing all of these amazing insights with us today. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great chatting with you, Whitney.
Wasn't that inspiring? I loved talking with Courtney and having this really honest conversation about mindset in business, energy, and just all the things that come with running a business and running a household. And also using our websites as one of the tools in our toolbox to make life easier and help our businesses grow so that we are not burning out and still running a business that we truly love and that fills our cup. Because I agree with her, life is too short to be working too hard or doing things that we don't enjoy. So thank you so much, Courtney, for sharing all of that with us. And if you are interested in working with us on your website and getting the support and guidance that Courtney got when she was working on her website in the Wellness Pro website system, I have amazing news. Doors are going to be opening very soon. So you can go to wellnessprowebsite.com to check it out and get on the wait list. So you are the first to know when enrollment begins, and you'll get insider access and bonuses too. And remember, if you want to learn more about what makes websites successful and how to build a website for your business that can help you grow, come to my free class happening next week. The first class is on Tuesday. The dates are August 20th and 21st, called the Client Generating Website Formula, and you can register at whitneybateson.com/formula. And since we are doing that class next week, we are going to take hiatus for 1 week from the podcast. So come to the class to learn from me and get some amazing insights and guidance for your website and your business. And then we will pick up again the following week. So thanks for listening and speak soon.